Where'd it go?
So I know, yeah. Because I know the different things.
Powering on. Welcome to All Tech Lansing.
I have to, it's like a lot of things now. It's like, there's a lot of things, so I can't explain it right now. What?
Okay. All right. I think so. Takes me just a minute to get everything set up, but when you talk about balance, it's not the most exciting presentation. So it's this is actually, you guys are in luck. This is the second time I've done this lecture. So, you know, I've worked out all the kinks. So you look like you're excited, ready to go on a Saturday morning, yes. Right? 10:30 already. So just wet my lips a little bit. So balance. As we get older, I want you to know your balance, it deteriorates, but it's not your fault. That's my favorite excuse. My wife is in the audience today, and so she's heard that numerous times. It's not my fault. We have 4 kids, so you hear that quite a bit. But what we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about balance. We're going to talk about why it deteriorates as we age. We're going to talk about the issues, okay, and then we're going to talk about the fixes, how we can make it better. And I'm going to give you some exercises today that you're going to work on, all right, and then you're going to come back next week and the following week, and we're going to hone those exercises and really answer any questions that you may have so that you feel comfortable and confident moving forward, all right? So what I wanted to do is let you just watch a little video here. So what is Balance University? Let me show you. Balance University is a 10-week program that focuses on 4 components. We focus on core strength, flexibility, posture, and the most important, balance exercises. It should take you 20 to 30 minutes a day, about 3 to 4 times a week to complete this program. We're going to take you step 1 all the way through this program, step 2, step 3, step by step. It's easy to follow, it's fun to do, and you will improve your balance. Good luck. So 11 and 20. And balance is something that is very simple to take care of, right? Balance is something that's very easy to do. It's a consistent program, right? It doesn't have to be Balance University. It can be any balance program that you find. And I want to make that clear today. I'm not here to try to push anything on you or sell anything. What I'm here to do is teach you about balance. A lot of the things, a lot of the exercises in our program you can find on the Osteoporosis Foundation's website. Right? Those are proven exercises. What you're hearing is a chime, right? It's kind of annoying. It's kind of hard to listen to me and listen to the bell. It's supposed to be. You see, that bell is going off every 11 seconds. Every 11 seconds in the United States, an older adult is treated in the ER for a fall-related injury. Every 11 seconds. So every time you hear that bell, someone is being treated in the ER. In 2015, there were $50 billion in fall-related injuries. 2/3 of those costs. That's quite a number. And now we have 10,000 Americans turning 65 every day. Fall prevention is becoming quite the buzzword. So I'm going to turn this off before it drives me nuts, but it certainly drives home the point. 20. Every 20 minutes an older adult dies from fall-related injuries in the United States. Now, this is something that is not pleasant to talk about, but it's absolutely necessary. As I've gotten through this business, I've been doing what I do for 20 years, right? I went to school, went to school for dietetics, As soon as I walked off stage, I played football for a long time, so went back to school, got my degree, then went to work as an electrician. My dad scratched his head, but then what happened was the economy crashed, right? And so we went back into the healthcare industry, and I met a doctor, a physician, a Dr. Khan. And so he came to me, he said, "Hey Chris, listen, working as a personal trainer," he was my client, he said, "Listen, I have a bunch of patients that cannot physically get to the gym. Can you go to their home and work with them?" And so being married, having 4 children, I thought, absolutely. Are they paying? Because if they are, I'll be there. You can count on it. He said, absolutely. And so this is what set me off on my path, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. But first, pop quiz. Who loves pop quizzes? Everyone? What I'd like for you to do, and I do not mean to put anyone on the spot, but what I'd like to do is, if you would like to, we're going to stand up and just move behind your chair. We're just going to do a balance assessment. And of course, I want everyone to take your time. Don't be in a rush. We're going to go slow here. And this is just a simple assessment.
That's good.
And so we're going to find out. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to stand with our feet hip width apart. All right, I want your knees slightly bent. You're going to pull your belly button into your spine. Your shoulders are back. You're nice and tall. I want you holding on to your chair. Right, my insurance company likes me to say that, and since we're in Florida blue, so we're going to be nice and tall. Our feet are hip width apart. All right, I'm going to give you 2 verbal cues. The first cue, I'm going to have you close your eyes. The second cue, I'm going to have you raise your hands an inch and only an inch above the chair. I want everyone to be really safe. If you feel unsteady, please open your eyes, put your hands on the chair, okay? All right, ready? We're going to do this for 15 seconds. Nice and tall. First cue, eyes closed, hands are still on the chair. All right, hands off. Hands now. Bend your knees a touch. Stay safe. If you feel any unsteadiness, eyes open, hands on the chair. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Eyes open. Great job. Everyone looked pretty steady, looked pretty sturdy. Now we're going to add a variable. All right, we're going to make it a little bit harder, and the way we're going to do that is we're going to move our feet closer together. That's it. Same 2 verbal cues in the same order. Knees still slightly bent. All right, hands on the back of the chair. All right, eyes closed. Hands up. Now this is going to be a little more unsteady, so be safe. Be very, very safe. Good. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Good. Let me have everyone come back into the chair. Well done. You guys did great. Man, what are you doing here? Everyone did great.
That's for tomorrow.
Ask us to lift one leg up.
Yeah.
Funny you said that. Oh, fantastic. Well, that's great because, you know, as we're going through research, I was actually looking for curriculum, and I'm sorry, your name is? Nan. I was talking to Nan earlier before the lecture, and I was actually looking for curriculum to work with and interject into my business. You know, I wanted to take something, a course that would teach me more about balance, something a bit more comprehensive. And so what I found was there was an extremely high entry point, okay? And what that means is that most of the programs were doing 2 things. They were either asking people to stand on one leg right off the bat, or my favorite, and Lord knows I love our law enforcement guys, they put their life on the line every day, right? But they have a test that I promise one of these days I'm gonna push some legislation. Why in the world do we do this heel to toe assessment, right? This is very hard to do for anyone, as well as standing on one foot. This is what I was seeing a lot of. And so as I began to ask and research and talk to physical therapists and occupational therapists, I'm fortunate to have both of those in my family. And as I began to talk to Dr. Khan and other physicians, I found this was common. And I thought, anything that I take, I'm going to have to apply some of my own knowledge, because most folks that I know cannot stand on one foot for 15 seconds. Okay, and we're going to get into the reasons of why and how we can fix that. So as you can see, each assessment gets a little bit harder, right? And so for time purposes and things like that, we didn't do the one-legged test, but come back because we will. All right, we will go through that. But I just want you to take note that after each assessment, it's going to get a little harder each time, okay? We're going to come back to that. There's a reason for that. So, my beautiful wife, I'm earning so many points today. Man.
Where's your good point?
Raise your hand. So, we went to a health fair, and I had this great table, looked just like this table over here. People are walking by, man. I was dressed. I had my shirt pressed that day. I was standing out front. People were walking by, and they were thinking, oh, balance, that's great, and just walking right on by the booth. And I thought, man, people don't know their balance is getting bad. You know, and so I thought, you know, you're much better looking than I am. Let me go behind the booth and you come out here. And of course, she did get more people to come talk to her. And I don't know why. I don't look intimidating, beard, tattoos, right? So we leave the health fair, we learn something. She says, hey, we need a sign or something to put on the table. I said, great idea. This is the actual sign. The very next health fair, we're standing there, and about from me to the back wall over there, I see a lady about 90 years old. She's got about 4 bags that she's went around and grabbed all the free stuff. So she's loaded down, and she sees my sign, and I see her position, and I'm thinking, don't do it. Don't do it. She's doing it. And I made a beeline, shot through the crowd to get over there because I'm fearful she's going to fall. And so this ended up being the best health fair that we had done. Everyone who came by the desk stopped and looked and tried to stand on one foot. Very few people could do it. So that brought another, I guess, epiphany, is that most people don't know their balance is bad until they fall. I got a phone call from a gentleman. He said, Chris, listen, I read about you in the paper. I need you to come to my home and work with me. So I go over, we talk. I said, well, what happened? He said, well, look, we go to this place once a month. I was standing near a chair, near a table. There was a waiter coming, and I just simply tried to step back. And I said, oh, did you catch your heel on a chair or something? He said, no, my leg just gave out. I went down. I'm so embarrassed, I don't think I can ever go back. And I said, no, you're going back. If I have to go with you, we're going back because fear is not going to play a part in this. First thing we got to do is build your confidence, build your balance. And so we did. And so he ultimately ended up being able to go back to the restaurant. I don't think it had anything to do with his balance. I think it had more so to do with his stomach. But the moral of the story is that he didn't realize his balance was bad until he took a fall. And then we started picking apart and peeling that onion apart. The reason I became so passionate about balance is because of this gentleman right here, Mr. Wolfe. Mr. Wolfe was on a battleship in the Pacific in World War II. He later was captain of a minesweeper. Does anyone want to take a guess what a minesweeper is made out of? What are mines attracted to? Iron, metal. So minesweepers are made out of wood. He used to tell me these great stories about all these sailors who had been in battle, who were reassigned, who had gotten to choose their reassignment to try to serve out their time kind of out of the way. They've done their time, they did their work, and they would get assigned to his minesweeper, and then they would go right back because wood ships weigh so much less than an iron ship, and those things were getting tossed left and right. He said we had seasoned sailors that had been in the Navy for 10 years that were begging to go back because they were getting sick. The thing was just tossing in the sea like a toothpick. This young man is Caleb. This is my youngest son. My wife and I have 4 children. And so Caleb and Mr. Wolfe are exactly 90 years apart in age. Both born on Christmas Day, if you can believe that. So one day I'm working with Mr. Wolfe, and if I'm working with you, Sometimes 10 doesn't mean 10. Quite often that's the case. If I ask you to do 10 repetitions, that usually means 12 or 15, or it's even better if you don't count, let's be honest. So Caleb was in preschool. Mr. Wolfe was right at that time where I would pick Caleb up, and there was an hour there before the babysitter could get Caleb. So guess what, buddy? You got to go to work. We've all been there, most of us. So he goes, he sits back, he sits in his chair, very quiet, as you can see, very, very calm, very kind heart. I'm working with Mr. Wolfe. I tell him 12. We get to 12. I say, keep going, and Caleb chimes in, says, hey, Dad, Mr. Wolfe is done. That's 12. Mr. Wolfe looks right past me, straight to Caleb, and he goes, come here, young man. You're going to sit right here by me. You're my new counter. And a friendship was born. Mr. Wolfe was my very first client that Dr. Kahn had referred to me when I opened my business. And so he had a special place in my heart. He was also a client of mine for over 4 years. I got a phone call one day. You see, Mr. Wolfe had in-home care, 24 hours. He had gone to the restroom, tried to get up. How many of us are guilty of this? Pushed on the toilet roll holder, trying to get up, and it broke. He slid off the toilet and fell in between the toilet and the wall. He was wedged. Ultimately, it ended up being a significant fall. He broke his shoulder. That injury, I believe, I know, ultimately led to several other complications, and Mr. Wolfe was gone about 16 months later. And it broke my heart. And that's what sent me on my journey to help people. Because to me, I felt inadequate, that I didn't do enough. What did I not know? How could I have helped? There's tons of factors, yeah. There's tons of things. But I'm looking at my role. And this is how I became passionate about balance and helping folks. So I wanted real life proof. I'm reading all this research telling me balance deteriorates as we age. I wanted real life proof of this. It just so happened my parents happened to be in town. I had my mom, my dad in their 50s. My wife and I, my wife is still 25. I'm not. So if I tell you my age, you might guess hers. So we had our kids, teenagers, and then we had young Caleb. Okay, he was about 6, 7 at the time. Here's the bet. What ultimately became to be known as the bet. A one-handed or one-legged balance reach. What is a one-legged balance reach? Well, it's this right here, right? We're up, we're going to go down, touch your toe, and come right back up. So I wanted to test all 4 age groups. I've got them right here at the house, right at my fingertips. Let's see, does balance deteriorate as we age? Let's find out. My mom, being the loving mom that she is, what can I do? She gets on, stands, legs shaking like a leaf, all right? So then here comes my wife, my dad. Well, let me back, my dad comes through, you know, Senior Master Sergeant Williams. And sometimes it's dad, sometimes it's Senior Master Sergeant. And so he walks through and he goes, that looks dumb, I'm not doing it. You got to be kidding me. That was the end of that. So here comes, right, the teenage, my wife and I. So my wife and I, she gets on and she gets down, struggles a little bit, right? It's a challenge, but she's able to do it. I'm able to do it, but it takes me a little work. The teenagers are a little bit better, right? They don't have to work as hard. Well, here comes Caleb running through the house. Hey, what are y'all doing? So Caleb, come here, try this. He stands up, psh, psh, like nobody's business. I said, no, that's too easy. Now the teenagers, right, now it's starting to get competitive. We got 3 boys, 1 girl. So it gets competitive really quick in my house. So now here they go, back and forth. Who can do it the fastest? Who can do it the best? So then everyone can agree that I'm a bit stable but unstable on one leg, right? That's relative though. For some of us, standing in a split stance could be stable but unstable. We're going to get back to that. What I did, I said, all right, showboats, if you think you're good, this is called a Dynadisc. I want you to stand on this thing and do a one-legged balance reach. So we get on, we go down, touch, and come right back up. Do you know how long I've had to work on that to be able to do it in front of people? So true story, a few years later, This has become known as the bet because everybody that comes to my house, I have teenagers, right, boys, everyone that comes to my house, Mr. Williams, hey, can we do the bet? If you do it, you get $5. So now this has become a thing, right? I've given away about $15. 10 of it's going to the same person. Anybody want to guess? Caleb. Well, wouldn't you know? Just last week, I asked him, I said, hey, get over here and try this. This is his first try. Let's see.
He's grown.
Yeah. Oh, he's not going to play. I had this the other day. I thought I had fixed it. I don't know why. Anyways, he jumps up, he goes right down, touches toe, and comes right back up. Unbelievable. Frustrated me. I didn't pay him, though. I'm not paying you for that. So we'll have to look in. I don't know why that. Anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this stuff, right? Let's talk about the issues. Lucky for you, I have an experiment. Ha-ha. Now, babe, do you mind untying that for me? I came ill-prepared. Let's talk about the issues, the problems. First thing we're going to talk about is neuromuscular efficiency and proprioception. These are big fancy words that I like to use so you guys think I know what I'm talking about. Neuromuscular efficiency, it's really not as complicated as you think. It's the nervous system, right, our brain and spine, and how it communicates with our muscular system. Think about how far away my feet are from my brain, right? So those signals have to travel quite a ways. We're going to talk in depth about these problems. Second issue is our vestibular system, our vision, and our hearing. And the third major issue here is leg strength. Leg strength plays a huge role not only in balance, but cardiovascular health, and even in the bathroom, helping you go to the restroom, and we'll talk more about that. So first thing is let's talk about neuromuscular efficiency and proprioception. Thank you. Now, I am a big Cowboys fan, so you have to understand the sacrifice I'm making here by putting this guy up here, Brett Favre. He's a Cowboy killer, let me tell you. Broken more hearts than I can imagine. So I want you to notice the two styles here, where they have their arms as they prepare to throw the football. Okay? Neuromuscular efficiency. Let's tie that to balance. How many times do you think Brett Favre has thrown a football? Thousands. Thousands. How many times do you think Tim Tebow's thrown a football? Just as, yeah, thousands. Tim Tebow, great athlete. Brett Favre, great athlete. What separates them? Well, form, neuromuscular efficiency. When Brett Favre throws the ball, he throws it like this. It's gone. 9,000 miles an hour down the field. When Tim Tebow throws the football, he has a bigger motion. So, why is that? Well, it all started when they were young and as they've trained. So, over the years, Tim Tebow, his body, his mind, memorized the contractions, how hard they must contract, the rate they must contract, compared to how far he wanted to throw it down the field. His muscles memorized that. We call it muscle memory or neuroplasticity. Okay, now let's not get carried away with the big words. Basically what it means is that when Tebow decides to throw a ball, the opposite in his brain flips a switch and he throws the ball. He doesn't, okay, I'm going to throw it 10 yards, now it's 11, now it's 12, okay, now I'm at a 45-degree angle, okay, now I'm going to be at a 70% contraction rate. That's not how it works. He just does it. Have you ever walked and stumped your toe and almost lost your balance, but you were able to catch your balance? That moment, we call that agility. How quickly was your brain able to determine and analyze the signals it was getting from your body to realize that you're getting off kilter, you're about to fall, and then you had the ability to analyze those signals, readjust your foot, catch yourself, and not fall. That's what we call agility, right? That's what we call neuroplasticity at work. The object here at any balance program is to develop neuromuscular efficiency. So if I stump my toe, I've practiced enough in proprioceptive environments that I can recognize I'm off balance and fix it quickly. As we get older, though, we sit more. And ironically, I just was talking about this the other day with a group of guys because they were all sitting on their rear ends. I said, hey man, that's going to flatten your rear end. No, it doesn't. And we looked it up, and actually research does show that the more you sit, the flatter your rear end gets, but it takes a while. But as we get older, we advance up the corporate ladder, right? And we tend to sit a lot more. So that was just a side note. So let's talk neuromuscular efficiency. Everyone have a grasp on what that is, how our brain communicates with our muscles and the importance there? Let's talk proprioception. I just showed you an example. I'm stable on one leg, but I'm a bit unstable. I would say I'm 95 to 100% confident I'm not going to fall. But if I add a variable, now I might be 85 to 95. You see me working a little bit more? This is a variable. This would be level 1. Level 0, level 1. So proprioceptively enriched environments, stable but unstable, are a necessary ingredient to help us improve our balance. Well, how do we know what level we need to be at? Great question. I'm glad you asked. That's why you're here. Because now I'm going to give you the yellow brick road. And you're going to be able to understand what that means. Where you need to begin and what proprioception feels like. What I want you to do is take this exercise. It's called a split stance. And I want you to work on that this week. Some of you, it may be very simple. It may not be a challenge at all. That's okay. But what I want to do is I want your brain to become comfortable in where your body weight is planted, is placed on your feet, and develop some familiarity here. What else does this look like? Aha! You see where I'm going with this? So not only will you need to spend some time, 15, 20 seconds at a time, just stand. All of our stances will look different. Some will be further, some will be closer, some will be wider, some will be more narrow. You're looking for 95 to 100% confident you're not going to fall in this split stance. Now, if we take it and go to the other foot, it's going to look completely different. We're all better balanced on one foot than another, right? We'll have one side that's better than another. Why is that? Does anybody know?
Well, you're either a right-handed, your body's right-oriented or left-oriented.
Right. That absolutely has something to do with it. But also, I want you to pay attention today when you're in casual conversation with folks. Now, don't be creepy about it. Don't be weird. What are you doing? I'm just looking, nothing. I'm just looking how you stand. But what I want you to do is I want you to notice how people stand. Where's most of my body weight? On my left leg. So is it safe to say that maybe 70, 80% of my body weight is on my left foot? This is how I stand most of the time. I try not to, but this is my default. So my brain is very familiar with the signals it receives from my feet, from my leg in this position. So to give it the remaining 20% is not that hard. Not that big of a jump. What if I go the other way though? Does that make sense? You got it.
Pretty young in those pictures.
Yeah. I got the modeling cheap. That's a sacrifice we got to make as small business owners. So that's our neuromuscular. Actually, I tell you what, let's have a little fun with this. So let's talk about the vestibular system. Let's talk about the vestibular system. We have vision, and we have our hearing. Pilots, when they fly, it's always great, and we just had an example of this with the untimely death of Kobe Bryant, right? There were two systems that you can fly. You have a visual system, and then you have the instrumentation. We've all heard that a lot recently. Visual it's very comforting to be able to see where you're going, right? You can determine obstructions, obstacles, you can gauge, you can adjust, you can reroute. When you remove the vision, let's say you're a pilot flying on a clear blue day, everything's great. You're still going to use your instruments, but you're going to look. You're going to see, right? As the pilot for Kobe in that helicopter. Now, what about if you're in the middle of the night in dense fog? Now you don't have your vision. Now you have to solely rely on your instrumentation. Do you know what that's an example of? In balance, when we close our eyes. Now we're solely reliant on the signals we're receiving from our feet to our brain. How good are we at analyzing, unpacking that data, and sending adjustments back so that we can stay erect, which is the very definition of balance. Does that make sense? You guys buy that? I just made all that up. So hearing, when's the last time anyone had a hearing test? I would recommend that you have a hearing test at least once a year. I sit on panels and I learn something every time I sit on a panel. We have one particular doctor who's a fantastic audiologist. He's not an ENT, hearing doctor. And he always comes with fantastic statistics. And he said in a panel one time, he said, listen, if we can catch your hearing loss, most of the time we can either stop it right there or slow it way down. All right? Hearing plays a huge part, our vestibular system, in our balance. How many of you have experienced vertigo? Oh, it's awful. You know, and you've got the crystals and you got to do the Epperle maneuver and you look like you're at a rock concert and, you know, it's not a lot of fun. Right? But then we also have tendinitis and things like that that can play a huge part in our balance and affecting our balance. So I would recommend vision and hearing testing at least once a year. All right? Ironically, 69 million people in the U.S. have suffered from vertigo at some point. From the National Institute on Deafness and other communication disorders. Let's have a little fun. Who's really great at balancing? Emily? No. I wouldn't do that. Do you? All the bonus points I've earned, and y'all are going to try to wipe me out like that? So what we're going to do, now this is not quite like having vertigo or tendinitis, right, the ringing in the ear, but it will help us prove a point. All right? Angie?
Yeah.
All right, Angie. Okay. All you got to do is you're going to just stand up, face me, all right? Hands on mine. I want you to balance on one foot. Whichever foot you're best at, just balance on one foot and hold. All right, everybody's going to look. We're just going to look at her foot. You see how she's working? That's pretty good.
In my sandal.
Yeah, that's not bad. And relax. So now what happens, foot down, there you go, when we put on the earmuffs? Let's find out. All right, so you can put them on or whichever way you would like.
Mess up my hair.
Yeah. Yep, regular earmuffs. Can't hear anything.
Oh.
Can't hear nothing. So everybody talk like this so she thinks we're talking loud. All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Not much though? All right.
I can hear you.
So let's see. All right. Same foot.
Same foot.
Take my hands. All right. Ready? That foot's working a little bit more. It's not this drastic thing, but you see how our foot's working a little more? And relax. Good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh.
Let's give Angie a round. Thank you very much. All right. So now, we have anyone else that's really good at balancing? I've got one more. Let's talk about vision. I'll do this one because this is really hard. All right? So everyone has seen me stand on one foot a couple of times, right, throughout this lecture. So now I'm going to put the blindfold on and let's see what happens. All right, here we go. All right, you ready? Now this is probably the toughest one. Okay, ready? Come on, there we go. But everybody gets the point, right? You see the changes and the differences there. So now, you may not have lost your vision. You may not have as much hearing loss, but you can see when those factors start to add up, how big of a difference it makes. Not only that, in our brains, our synapses, as we age, get further apart, right? Bobby, do you mind standing here? All you have to do is stand and just look beautiful. That'll go. Turn and face me. I want everyone to imagine we're in a Walmart supercenter. There's nothing in it but Bobby and myself, right? So these centers are quite large. So now, this is what happens in your brain as we age, right? Bobby is a train station and I am a train station, right? My voice is the train. In the brain, she is going to be an axon and I'm going to be an axon. In between is the synapse. You have neurotransmitters that travel along that synapse that bring signals. So when I tell my foot to move, I have tons of signals that travel from the axons across the synapse in my brain, which signal the muscle contractions all the way down to my foot and then back. Okay? Won't get too far into it, but that's what's going on. As we age, the train stations get further apart. So now imagine we're in that Walmart supercenter, we're talking, but I don't raise my voice. And we keep backing up and we keep backing up. Eventually, I'm going to back up far enough where Bobby's not going to be able to hear what I'm saying. Does that make sense? So now that train is going to have to travel further and further. That neurotransmitter, dopamine, norepinephrine. We've all heard of dopamine if you know anyone that with Parkinson's or been affected by Parkinson's. So now that train is going to travel further and further. Eventually, it's going to get to a point where we can't hear one another. That's what's going on in your brain. Thank you, Bobby. Well done. Thank you. But here's the good news. There's research that shows that exercise, and cognitive exercise can actually help regrow those axons and those synapses. Not regrow the synapse, but can help bring those closer together. But it's two things. It's exercise and cognitive exercise. What's cognitive exercise? Crossword puzzles, word searches, things like that.
Candy Crush.
Candy Crush. Man, I stopped playing. They kept asking me for money. Yeah. I couldn't get past this level. I was like, oh, man, I've already spent $20. So, does that make sense, guys? So now we have, that's part of our neuromuscular efficiency issue, right? So now we've got neuromuscular efficiency, vestibular. Now let's talk life indicator. Leg strength. Yes, absolutely.
Will you be covering how sleep, the lack of sleep, impacts this at all? And if there's a correlation, whether it be vertigo or anything? I don't know if you're going to discuss that at any of the sessions.
No, but I can answer a question about it. Okay. So Nan's question is, how does sleep impact your balance? Lack of sleep. So lack of sleep makes us less aware, right? Whenever we go to bed at night, we have so I just came through Arcadia, so Arcadia's on my circadian rhythm, right? Blind people deal with this quite often where they get confused between day and night. What happens is when we see the sun going down and we see night setting, we have a natural clock in our bodies that rests, tells us to rest. When we sleep, we repair the body. If you go without sleep, we all know you can feel more drowsy, you're less sharp, your cognitive ability is not quite as sharp. So when it comes to balance, guys, it can absolutely have a direct impact if you're not getting the right kind of sleep, right? And there's a lot of factors that can affect your sleep too, right? The type of bed. I mean, now they've got 9,000 different types of beds. They've got one that folds from the front, one from the back. They got fold together, you know, and then also your pillows too. So you want to make sure that you're getting proper rest. You're welcome. Third issue, leg strength. First thing I look at when I walk in to help someone is, do they get up and answer the door? If not, do they stand up when I approach the table where we're going to sit and meet? If not, do they stay seated? If they do not get up and they stay seated, I will ask them to stand. If they can't, right, or they do the chair rock and then come up, that's a red flag. That is a red flag. Balance begins in the joints. You have to have strong legs to improve your balance. Not only that, you have to have strong legs to be able to stand for 30 seconds, a minute. How do we help our hearts? What do we do for cardiovascular health? We get on a treadmill, right? Well, if we can't stand for 30 seconds, how does that impact our cardiovascular health? Right? Not only that, but how many of you have small dogs or have a dog or have owned a dog in your life? What's one of the first things the dog does when it goes outside?
Takes off.
takes off, goes to the bathroom. So when we walk, our blood circulates throughout the body, throughout the digestive system. Not only that, but gravity has an opportunity to work too and pull everything out. And we're going to stop right there because I think everybody knows what I'm talking about. So leg strength is extremely important to me. In fact, I would even say it's the most important to me in my business. So leg strength, I call a life indicator, because that tells me if you're not up and you're not moving around much, then we're probably not going to be around on this earth very long. And that's not pleasant to talk about, but that's the facts. That's the truth of it. So we go to work and we try to get those legs as strong as we can, as quickly as we can. One of the best exercises you can do to improve your leg strength. How many of you are familiar with the good old plop? You know the plop. Oh, man, it feels good. I want to challenge you, right, not to plop, and we're going to sit. We're going to do, actually, it's called the eccentric quad activity. Everybody knows what that is, right? Oh, yeah. Or it's called the sit slow. All right, what does that look like? 1, 2, 3, 4. No plopping allowed. This is a no plop zone. So I want you to do that. If you can, do it 3. If you can do it 5. If you can do it 8, do it 8 times. But I want you to try to do that at least twice a day. Twice a day, we're going to do the sit slow. 1, 2, 3, 4. It may even look like this. Make it work for you. It may even look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm okay with that because we're still getting some work done here. And as you get stronger, guess what? You're going to be able to get a little lower next time, next week, maybe next month, and then a little lower, and then a little lower. Does everybody understand that, how it progresses? Perfect. Perfect. And we're going to work on that too when you come back next week. So just for your knowledge, there's 3 life indicators. Number 2 is your VO2 max. That's a cardiovascular measurement, right? How many of you have taken a stress test? Boy, I can't stand those. Man, those are tough. I take stress tests every day. I've got 4 kids. Are you kidding me? So, and then your ability to add lean muscle tissue, the ability to build muscle. And of course, this is big business now because it just seems like everybody, even the gas station, sells testosterone somethings, you know, supplements or whatever. But women, ladies, even you guys have testosterone in your bodies, albeit a small amount. And guys, as we get older, our testosterone starts to decrease when we turn 30. You know, so, and that plays a huge role in the ability to build lean muscle tissue. Oatmeal actually is not only good for your heart, but it boosts testosterone too. I eat oatmeal every day. All right. So does anyone have a question on the issues before we move on?
Quick question.
Yeah, of course.
The sit plop or the sit slow, the positioning of your feet should be hip.
Mm-hmm.
Does it matter? Like, does it make it easier if your legs are wider apart, harder when they're closer together?
Hip width apart. So you want your hips, you want your feet hip width apart, and you want to stick your bottom back. In other words, you do not want your heels to come off the ground. You want the majority of your weight on your heels. So as you sit, some folks go straight down. That's not what we want. What I want you to do is I want you to stick your bottom out and going straight back, because that's going to engage the glutes, the bottom, the butt. It's going to engage the hamstrings and also the quads. As we go down, we're going to ask more and more of them. Eventually, you're going to get to a point where your legs may shake. I want your knees to follow your toes. So in other words, as I go down, I don't want my knees to cave in. I want to push them out if I have to. Consequently, I don't want my knees going outside of my toes. So I want to make sure that my knees stay over my toes as I go down. And we'll...
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So that kind of exercises, for lack of a better term, the butt muscles?
Yeah. Yeah. Squat. Nothing better for the bottom than a squat.
Okay.
Yeah, you better believe it.
Yeah.
I do. So since you want the knees to follow the toes, that's why in one of the earlier slides the guy had the ball between his knees.
Yes, that was for alignment. Yep. And that ball, honestly, weighs 0 pounds. It weighs 0 ounces. It's just put into the pictures and you'll see it. for alignment purposes, because a lot of times with folks that have extreme atrophy in the quadriceps, what happens is a lot of muscle loss there. They'll push their knees together to try to get their legs up. You've probably seen that a lot, you know. So I want to make sure that the knees are apart. Yeah, you got it. And we'll get to all that, and keep asking questions, guys, because I am a firm believer. And if you know the whys and the hows, then you're more apt to do it and participate. 4 pillars of balance: strength, posture, flexibility, balance. You must work on all 4 of these. All 4 of these play a huge role. This makes up great balance. We talked about the neuromuscular efficiency and the neuroplasticity, and we'll talk a little bit as this relates to Parkinson's and neurotransmitters and our dopamine. So strength-wise, we actually covered one of our strengthening exercises already, the sit slow. Okay? One of our postural exercises, I'm going to have you stand. Now remember, I told you our balance stance, that's level 0. Let's level up. Level 1, we can include with our balance exercise. We can get 100 pennies on the dollar. How do we do that? If you get your checkbooks out, I'll tell you. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to turn our palms to the sky, and we're going to move out and in. That's it. Andrea, do you mind? I'm just going to have you stand. All right, stand and look beautiful. That's it. I want everyone to take notice at the back of Andrea's shoulders here. Am I saying your name correctly, Andrea?
Yes, you
are. On the back of her shoulders. All right, you have your posterior delt, you have a teres major and minor, you have your traps, you have a lot of muscles coming through here, okay? As we go through life, everything is in front of us. Our phones, when we drive, our computers, when we sit, our shoulders come together. So what happens is all these muscles back here, they lengthen and weaken if we don't do anything to counteract that. Not only that, but the muscles in the front, they get tight. Thus, we see folks with terrible posture. How do we prevent that? By sitting nice and tall, but gosh, how many times do you have to remember that in a day? Oh yeah, sit tall. And then you go down, oh, sit tall. And then you go down again. So this exercise here, right, Andrea, let me have your hands up. That girl, you're just going to stay right there, and all I want you to do is go out to the side and come back in and touch your pinkies. What she's doing, continue. What she's doing is she's working her posterior delt right here. You see that? So we're building muscle tissue there. That muscle weighs more than fat. How many of you have heard that? Muscle weighs more than fat. Muscle's heavy. So what happens is that muscle acts as an anchor as you build it, and it gets stronger, and it pulls that shoulder, and just relax, Andrea, and pulls that shoulder back. Does that make sense? You guys buy that? Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. So that's why we're doing this exercise, because it works the back of the shoulder. Does that make sense? Perfect. We can also do that in our split stance, so that now we're having to deal with a transverse motion, right? We're on the transverse plane. This is the transverse plane. But we're also on the sagittal plane, right? So now we have a lot of things going on for the mind to deal with. I mean, it's really having to really interpret a lot of signals there, right? But that's for level 0, level 1. What would be level 2? And don't worry about trying to get it all in if you miss it, because we're going to go over this in class. Level 2 would be eyes closed. Man, what would level 3 be? Shift and weight, right? But first, it takes us to create familiarity in the brain. Or jumping up. Yeah, that's a lot. So does everyone see what we're trying to do? We're trying to build the foundation and then build on top of that. Okay? Awesome. Flexibility. When we sit, the hamstring shortens. When we stand, it lengthens. Everyone can buy into that, right? I want you to think about a mooring line. This mooring line goes from the dock to the boat, except I had to use 3 ropes to make it 9 feet. I need this rope 9 feet. I need my mooring line 9 feet. So I have 3 feet rope, 3-foot rope. How would you say that? 3 feet ropes? 3-foot ropes? You know what I mean. So I have 3 of them. What if I tied the middle rope into 4 or 5 knots. Is that rope going to be 3 feet? So now, if I had to stretch it to 9 feet, where is the most stress going to be in that system? In the middle. So when we sit, not only do our hamstrings shorten, right? Our glutes are inactive, our calves are inactive, and we sit a lot more than we stand as we get older. So now what happens is now as our hamstrings tighten, it can prevent you from reaching your full gait length. Because if it's tight, I can only swing my leg to here. If it was able to operate through its full range of motion, I could swing it the entire way. Now if I have all these factors, you get this. Where's my center of gravity? Here, as opposed to here. This is how we're designed to walk, nice and tall and erect. When I walk here, think about there's a lot of muscles in this position that are underperforming and a lot of muscles that are having to overperform. A lot of dysfunction causes pain. Does that make sense? So our brain then has to readjust in how to balance ourselves. So posture plays a huge role because it puts our center of gravity where it's supposed to be. You guys buy that? On a roll. Is it noon yet? Almost. All right, so there's 4 pillars: strength, posture, flexibility, and then of course the balance, guys, working in our split stance. You will hear me refer to this position from now on as the position of confidence. This is our foundation. We will build on this. We will even go from this position to one leg. From this position, heel to shin touch. All right, you guys buy that? You on board? Hot dog, I'm telling you. Parkinson's, what happens is our dopamine, our neurotransmitters do not function the way they're supposed to. Most of us have been affected in our lives, or we know someone that's been affected by Parkinson's. So what happens is now that neurotransmitter is not functioning the way it's supposed to. With mice, there was one group that did exercise. There was another group that just was the control group, did nothing. Right? The exercise group ran on the rat wheel. Well, one of the scientists, one of the researchers thought it would be a great idea, so he brought a cage of the mice home. The exercise group, he brought them home and introduced social interaction. When he came back into the lab, all the researchers were like, "Oh, what are you doing, man? You just ruined the whole study." You know, nobody included or accounted for social interaction. You let the mice play with the kids. So they sat down, they had a big powwow, took them a few days, they decided we can move forward. We're just going to have to include that these mice had social interaction. You know, they had playtime with the kids, right? Honest mistake. Turned out to be one of the best things. Because what happened is at the end of the study, the mice with social interaction and exercise, their brains weighed more than the control group, the group that did nothing, had no exercise, no social interaction, nothing. What does that mean? It means the hippocampus grew. And what they saw was new growth. It's great news, especially if you have Parkinson's, because then those synapses began to realign. So as they get further apart, we add exercise, cognitive exercise, we can begin to realign those synapses. Great news, great news. Does anybody want to guess when that research was done? It's going to blow you away. 70s. Why do we not know about it? I'm not going to mention any names, but it could be due to money. You know. So that's just more evidence that exercise really does improve everything, right? It really does improve your health in many ways, all right? If I can give you any advice today, consistency. Consistency wins the race. It only takes 10,080 minutes of your time in a week. There's 10,080 minutes in a week. It takes 1%. 1% of that time. 1% of 24 hours is 14 minutes, a little over 14 minutes. If you spend, and guys, I like to pick on us, but you know when we cook for our wives and we're standing in front of the microwave and the number's ticking down, we could stand in our position of confidence, right? And next week I'm going to show you another exercise you can do, okay? All right, work on your position of confidence. One foot in front of the other. It may look different because we're better balanced on one side than another. Adjust it. You may find yourself in this position and man, I'm just unstable. So adjust. It may look like this. That's okay. As long as that one foot is just a little bit in front of the other, we can work with that. Okay? And also, let me give you another little piece of homework. I want you to find you something solid, a table, something that's not going to move, and I want you to do one more balance exercise. It's also going to double as a strengthening exercise. It's going to be a leg lateral. You're just going to move your leg out to the side. Okay, make sure you're holding on to something. If this is really difficult and you can't stand on one leg, step then. Step to the side and step back. That makes sense? My uncle gave me some advice many years ago. He said, the mind can only take what the rear end can handle, so don't talk forever.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
Is there a certain height when you do the laterals that you need to put it out to?
As long as you have no lateral flexion in the spine, so in other words, I don't want to do this, but as long as I have the range of motion and the flexibility, I wouldn't bring it. You see how when I start to get up, it starts to change where my spine goes. So you probably just want to go maybe 8 to 12 inches, 8 to 20 inches, you know, depending on your range of motion, your flexibility. Questions, guys? Anything? Man, everybody's ready for lunch.
So what are your thoughts in regards to the strengthening?
Sure.
They have, like we mentioned, 20 minutes to fitness. Once a week, slow moving, but building up strength.
Right.
Is that something, what do you feel, I mean, do you feel from your expertise that once a week can build strength doing that?
It needs to be more often.
Okay.
So what you learn in that class, it sounds like a great class, but what you learn in that class, you need to do more often. You need to do something every day. So how many of you watch TV? Gotcha. I'm on fire today, babe. When you watch TV, right, and you're sitting there and you're watching the Dallas Cowboys, and you're not throwing anything or yelling at the TV, I want you to sit nice and tall and extend your legs straight out in front of you. And right back down. Make sure your feet come down flat on the floor. Make sure your knees aren't touching, right? But you want everything in a line. You're going to go up, hold, and then right back down. Up, hold, and right back down. You got it. See if you can do 8, 10, 15. Find what works for you. And I would do that 4 or 5 times a day. Right? How many of you woke up this morning? Got you again? When you wake up in bed, right, I want you to scoot yourself all the way back to the headboard. I want you to place your legs out in front of you. Right? You're going to separate them. And so some of us may not have the flexibility to get here. We may have to start like this because the back of our legs are so tight. But eventually, over time, every day, you'll get more and more flexible. You'll start to build that elasticity back in those hamstrings, and then you can work yourself up. That's why I tell folks, scoot to the headboard and use the headboard or the wall. Right? If this is easy for you, let's get all the way. The ultimate goal is to tuck your chin to your chest and walk forward with your hands. That's the ultimate goal. And what this is a flexibility exercise. We're going to stretch the back of your hamstrings. All right? So you've got a handful of exercises. You've got hamstring exercise. We're doing that in bed because most people have a really hard time getting up off the floor. And if you live alone, that can be an issue. You know, I work with people all the time that this is a very real part of their daily life is a fear of falling, and how would they contact somebody if they fall, right? And or can they even get up by themselves? This is going to have a direct impact on where they spend the rest of their life. If it's going to be somewhere where they don't want to move, or if they're going to be able to stay in their homes. And we're seeing more and more of this. I just got a phone call the other day to do a lecture with a lady from Merrill Lynch. What does a financial advisor have to do with balance? Well, she says, I'm seeing more and more people in my office that it's not only staying in their home, we're having to plan financially, but what's coming up is that they're worried they're going to fall. And so balance is becoming an issue. So, something to think about. Anything else, guy? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I just want you to review. So we're supposed to do the plow exercise.
Right.
We're supposed to do the hamstring exercise.
Right.
We're supposed to do, what did you call it, where we're just standing in our favorite
Position of confidence.
position of comfort. We're supposed to do that, and then we're supposed to do the thing with the arms.
You got it.
Are those the four?
Those are the four. You got it. You've got your balance, you've got your flexibility, you've got your posture, and you've got your strength. And that's great homework for you guys. And then when you come back, we're going to build your repertoire. All right? We're going to change the world. I will be here for a little bit longer if you have more specific questions you would like to ask. Guys, I'm a small business guy, Florida Blue. I want to thank Florida Blue for having me come in and talk about balance. You can find balance exercises at Silver Sneakers, guys, which is ironically based on the research that we talked about with the mice, social interaction. Silver Sneakers is a great program. Tai Chi is fantastic. If you have a Tai Chi in your community, do Tai Chi. I think that is fantastic. But to do nothing is not going to help. So do something. Every day do something. All right? Kristen, did you have anything?
Yes.
Kirsten?
I just wanted to let you guys know we have Chris's book here. You will get it if you attend all 3 classes. So next time you come in, make sure you check off your name on the list. And then we can keep track of it that way. But we do have these, and we'll give them to you with the 3rd class. Okay?
Are you teaching this class again in March?
It hasn't been planned yet. We haven't looked that far forward, but could be. So, all right. So when you guys come in, just make sure you sign in so we have a role for you. All right. All right. Hey, thank you very much. I know I like to talk. I was trying not to put anybody to sleep. It's taking a little while to get this lecture down so nobody falls asleep. Thank you. Thank you for coming on a Saturday morning, and thank you, Florida Blue, for having me and my wife. So, all right, guys, enjoy your weekend.
The morning is my best time.
Excuse me.
Sure.
So